Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimSN podcast, the show where I ask some of my favorite questions to some of your favorite people. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, the founder of the Feast himself, the creator of the Sim engine, and the reason this site exists at all. Sir Guest, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Rocketcan. I don't know that I'd say I'm the reason this exists. I think there were a lot of people involved with getting this site off the ground, and so it was a big group effort, that's for sure.
And humble, too. That's good.
I mean, I honestly, it's just way too much work for one person to do,
Yeah.
which kind of makes sense, and that's part of the reason why this site exists is because we all came from a community where one person tried to do it themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
I understand why that was, but I think we were able to figure out a little bit better way to keep it sustained.
Yeah. Yeah. Spreading the workload and then an automation are two big
Yeah.
pillars that I can see have been embraced since the beginning. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so how long were you involved in sim sports with at other sites before you started thinking about your
Um,
own?
well, I mean, I've always been a simulation nerd. So like been playing games like simulation type games since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I played football and everything, so simulation football was always big. I wouldn't always get Madden, but I'd play it all the time.
Mm.
Like a guy like Madden '05 and never stopped playing it for the longest time. So I always loved doing that, franchise mode, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, uh, trying to work, getting ready to go back to school, back to college to finish a degree, and I stumbled across the old site, just looking for online game communities, and I thought the thing that made it unique was it was entirely community driven.
Mm.
And it was free. It was encourage the LARP and everything, and I thought that really added a level of immersion that didn't exist elsewhere. That you can't get that with fantasy football. You can't get that with a Madden league.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. And so I was very very drawn to that, and I thought that was really cool. People were writing newspaper articles about fake football players and fake football coaches and fake drama that they just made up and were having fun with it, and I thought it was hilarious. And so yeah, I was probably 2017, I think,
Hmm.
when I joined that site. I think it was 2017, something like that.
Was that when? So they still had college, user college at that point.
Yes, so
Okay.
there was user college, and then and NFL, and I picked up Florida Atlantic, or not Florida Atlantic, Florida International, excuse me, and played a few years in CUSA and worked my way from the bottom to conference champion, which was a big deal for me. Because Florida International was terrible in that sim, and there was a guy that played Rice. He was a coach for Rice, and Rice was like would dominate
Hmm.
the conference. Like they would go undefeated in conference like every year. Um, and so to win the conference the last year there was pretty sweet. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I played probably 3 seasons at Florida International through four, and then I think 2 or 3 seasons. One of the other guys that's currently on the site was also over there. He ran the Atlanta Falcons, and so I joined the team and ran through a few drafts and stuff, which was another big thing. I love the draft.
Hmm.
There's just something about drafting college players for pro teams that scratches an itch. I don't quite understand it, but I love doing it, and so that was a big deal. Yeah, I did that for until the site kind of stopped, and kind of slowly we just never picked up another season, and then eventually he's just like, yeah, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
which was unfortunate because it was a fun community.
Yeah. Um, was it? during that first stop, um, was that when you started thinking about making your own site, or building your own engine, or was it?
Um, I didn't think initially that it would be build my own engine or site, but I definitely looked and um, it was really, and I don't say this to try to throw shade or anything. It is what it is. It was inefficient, and it was a lot of work to keep up with, and I totally understand. Yeah, like this was a crazy amount of work for this guy.
Yeah.
Um, and like you had to make sure when you set your lineups, it had to be like copy pasted just the right way. Like you had a specific spot in the form, you had to copy paste, my quarterbacks, and this is the order of my quarterbacks and everything, right? And it had to be just right. Like if there was one comma out of place, or there were, and like there were colors associated with
Yeah.
each line, and like so like if the color was slightly off, it would screw things up. So there were tons of places where just a tiny amount of user error, entirely unintentional, could blow things up. And it was frustrating for the guy running it. It was frustrating for users because they didn't know when they did something wrong necessarily, and so there was a lot of friction there. And at the time, I had decided to that the degree that I would finish would be a software engineering degree, because I'd done the whole I don't know what I'm doing for like a year, and then took a quite a long break between my effectively my freshman year, and uh, going back to school. And so I'm like, I think I want to do software engineering, like computer science stuff. So I'm taking these computer science classes and learning how to code C++ and everything. And I'm like, I could write an engine for this, that would make this so much easier, and it would automate it, and like, it would be so it would reduce the workload for everybody immensely. And that would mean less burnout, because
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of times where he was like, look, the guy runs site was like, look, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. And everybody'd be like, no, 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 come on, we really like this. And he'd keep going a little bit longer, but there was always that hanging over your head of, at any moment he could just walk away, and that'd be the end of it. So I tried to reach out a little bit. He wasn't very receptive to it. I understand, because I think he had gotten burned before by people saying they'd do stuff and then they didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I was thinking about building the sim, building a sim, or adapting what was already made into something else, into an automated system, for a while. Um, Probably at least after that first season. Yeah.
Cool. Um, when when you started work on that, um, I don't know. Were there? I mean, is this one of those things that, like, it started as a simple idea, and then it gradually got bigger and more complex as you built onto it, and then kind of became, and
Um,
then its own separate thing?
no, because I've always one of my faults is I always want to try to like simulate down to minutia, right? And so I've always like, no, I want to make a realistic sim that goes all the way down to the lowest level, and you're doing every tiny little thing. And so actually it's gone the other way.
Hmm.
I started out with the prototype was basically, it was supposed to be like every tiny little thing was mapped out. And I probably worked on that for like a year or two. And we actually, I don't know if it's still in the forums, but there was a test run of that. Like we sat down and we live streamed, a bunch of us. One guy was on one team, another guy was on another team, and they would like send us their play calls, and we'd put in the play calls, and like I had to hand jam all this stuff. But it would run. The play would run once I put them in. But it was terrible. It was unbalanced, and there were a lot of bugs, and it just I realized this isn't going to work. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. At least at the time, this was all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I need to simplify things. And I looked around at what other things were doing. There's a bunch of like board games out there, and I thought they had some interesting ideas. So I kind of went shopping around, picked this idea from that game, that idea from that game, tweaked it to what I wanted it to be, and all that stuff. And probably after a few years, we had something that worked reasonably well enough that you could look at it and say, yeah, that looks like football. But it was pretty simple. So like we had started with, oh, we want to be complex, and then it got very simple, and then it was okay. Now we got to flesh this back out again.
Hmm.
So yes, the sim has definitely grown in complexity since our first season, but we since then it's definitely become more complex, and I think we've done a good job of making it moderately realistic. There's still bugs, and there's still always things that we can try to do. Like this off season, we want to look at special teams, because right now special teams is sort of the bastard child of the sides of the ball, and so we want to try to make that more realistic. And and thankfully now we have more than just me working on it. And you work on it a bit, I work on it. We have another guy that's been looking at things and writing up. He's already contributed code to it, so we're working on getting the sim to be more realistic. We're continuing to try to flesh it out.
Yeah. I like your phrase of "it looks like football," because it definitely does. Like you say,
Yeah,
there are quirks and there are weird meta things, but it
yeah.
looks and feels like a
And it
football
used to
league.
be it used to be a lot worse. Like 700-yard passing games and
Oh
things
God.
like that, like consistently. And so it it's still there's always going to be room for improvement with this, but I mean, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
I feel like we've come a long way. Um, yeah, so it's been a journey to get to this far and kind of look back and be like, man, we've been doing this for a few years and it looks like football. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, and you get the energy of it on game day. Like it feels like
Yeah,
when you're gathered
people get
around
excited.
watching a game. Yeah, you get excited, you get invested,
Yeah,
um, and there's just enough of wild plays and crazy outcomes or clutch moments, close games that yeah, it starts to give you that same energy
yeah,
that watching a game would. Um, I think one thing I'm going to appreciate more and more is the fact that we have two different leagues. Obviously, it's still football, but two different leagues running on the same engine. Like that's a
yeah,
lot of balancing work to have a college level where you have a certain band of attributes, and then a second band which is pro, and those are running on the same engine. Like I know there's individual
yeah,
things that are calculated differently, but like that's a lot of work to balance two different skill levels um,
yeah.
at the same
I
time.
mean, the actually, so that's where actually I think um, it's spaghetti code under the hood. Like if you're a software engineer out there, don't look at this as an example of what to do, because like it's a mess. And I started this project before I had finished taking all my classes, so like you can tell there's some bad stuff in there. But it it- we'll sit there and part of the problem, the toughest part actually is the rule differences,
Mm,
because then you have to know, okay, am I playing a college game or an NFL game? Well, the overtimes are different. For example, that's a big one.
yeah,
Penalties are different.
yeah,
So now the vast majority of it is the same, which is nice, and that's why you can do that. But actually, the skill level things, it requires balancing things twice, right? Because you have to balance for the pro and then you have to balance the college at the same time, right?
hmm,
But that's not that bad, because you can just tell the game at the beginning, are you college or pro? And if you're college, you use this set of numbers.
mm,
If you're pro, you use another set of numbers, and that's it. All the formulas are the same, all of the functions are the same. It just uses different numbers to plug things in.
okay,
So it's um, and we're working on making that more efficient and everything. And that's one of the big things that T Sweezy, one of the guys that's picked up helping us, is going to be really helpful for, is taking what we have right now and simplifying it and making it um, more efficient. The actual outcomes aren't going to change,
hmm,
but the way that we tune things will change and make it a lot easier to balance in the off season, so we can keep making the off seasons a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter.
Hmm. Yeah, so more tools for the toolbox, as it were.
Yeah, yeah, and or replacing old tools that are probably aren't cutting it anymore, or we could do better. We can afford nicer tools now.
Yeah. Um, so what's it? What's it like being essentially an end user for your own product? Because obviously you're not just designing the sim, but you are also
Yeah.
playing it. You have a pro and a college
Um,
team.
I mean, that's a good question. I think, well, I mean, I guess the way I'd approach it is I, the reason I made this is so there would be a community that would want to play games like this, and so I get to I get to play the game I like to play. You know what I mean? It just so happens that I helped make it, and I don't know. It's cool in one sense because I get to see my my work come to fruition in a way,
Hmm.
and sometimes it is frustrating because you'll be playing it and you're like, oh, I saw this bug. Oh no, now I gotta go figure out what the hell went wrong. Anyone who has a passion project like that, or enjoys what they're making, is going to use it. Like if you work for a game development company and you're making games you like,
Hmm.
you're probably going to play those games, right? I'm sure there are plenty of software engineers out there that are making video games and are like, this sucks, I don't want to, I'm not going to go home and play this,
Hmm.
right? And I'm sure there are plenty of people that are like, I play it at work as a to test, so like I don't need to play it anymore. um but there's kind of like, I saw William Shatner, the Captain Kirk from Star Trek and everything. He said somebody was like, uh, I can't imagine it'd be like watching yourself on screen. He goes, I never have.
Mm.
And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I've never watched my own shows. And he never responded, like he never thought it out more than that. He just said that, and I thought, no, that makes sense. Like if you're there on set every day, you've
Hmm.
read the script, you know what it's going to be, you know the story. If you don't, if you like, I know I did a good job on the shoot, you don't need to watch it. You got what you got the story, you know how it ends. So I don't know. So there's a couple of ways to look at it. But I just enjoy football. I love football. I love the game and the community that is around it. So it's a fun experience.
Good. Do you get a chance still to? Um, do you feel like you have enough time to? Well, not enough time. I know there's never enough time in the day.
Yeah.
But do you get a good chunk of time to experience the sim as an end user? I know you talked about having to
Um,
you know.
a little bit, not as much as I'd like. So for example, I haven't written media in a long time,
Hmm.
and that was one of the things I liked to do on the old site. Was I took over the CUSA roundup, the weekly roundup. So I'd write, you know, Old Dominion did this, Florida International did this, Rice did this, back when those were the conferences, and like the standings, and who's going to be in what in bowl games, and who might be the conference champion, and all this stuff. And I like doing that, but I just don't have the time for that anymore. The
Yeah.
only real media that I get to do, which I do enjoy, and I do carve time out for, is the draft book. I do help a lot with the draft book, and that is a cool piece of media, because it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of fake football players that we make draft report, reports on, scouting reports for, and that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of like the sim. The best part's not even like it being done or anything. It's that other people use it. Every like there are people out there that not only will, like, they'll download it, right? Because you can download it for free, but there are people out there that'll put their hard-earned money into, I want a print copy,
Yeah.
you know, which is awesome. Like that's cool. Um, yeah, that's the most rewarding part, I think, is that there are other people that are like, yeah, I think this is fun. I want to participate in this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun when people buy in, and then that I think, and
Yeah.
that is self-reinforcing too. The more people are willing to buy in,
Yes.
with media or just being active in chat, things like that, it encourages other people to do the same
Yeah.
or to find whatever their niche is, however they want to communicate it, whether it's writing things or making videos or statistical analysis with some of the amazing tools we have
Oh yeah.
now.
There's a
Um,
lot. Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of people contribute, and that's another thing too. Is I love seeing all the tools and the analysis and the different metrics people come up with just on their own about the football games and players that we made. And like, we have two separate websites that do like strength of schedule and projections and betting lines and scouting, and that's awesome. That's really cool. And so it's really neat to see that kind of, the other people enjoy it so much that they put in their own work. And that, like you said, I can't agree anymore that in a community like this, having that engagement is self-reinforcing, and it you putting that work in makes it better for everybody,
mhm.
and everybody gets to enjoy uh, you know the sim a little bit more because you wrote that article, because you made that tool or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that they're independent in the same way that the NFL,
Yeah.
you have Pro Football Focus or Football Outsiders or these things that we heavily connect to the league in terms of their analysis or their grades or whatever. But they are their own separate thing. Um, and so, yeah, I like that we say, yes, we have the code, the way the league runs itself, and then we have all this cottage industry around it, these ancillary
Mhm.
things where people can feed into that but still be their own thing. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Um, let's see. Any either mechanically or also community related. Any big milestones? Any? I know you talked about like getting like having people invested. Was there any point where you kind of took a moment and went, "Oh, this feels like really real," or it just any
Yeah.
community moments that stand out for you?
Yeah, there are definitely a few. That first game that we did, that first test game, I think was really neat. um, that was really cool to set up and see people excited for it. um, that was a neat milestone. And it's interesting, again, like I said, the sim now is entirely different. It's
Mm,
been entirely rewritten. So that was a prototype, and that got scrapped. But it was still cool to see everybody get excited about progress being made. And then that first season was exciting. There was very obvious meta and everything, and numbers were crazy, and the records that will never be broken because of that. And I think we all kind of like ignore like the first few years. Don't worry about records for the first few years. Just worry about after like year two. But yeah, that, like the first national championship game, the first Super Bowl
hmm
that we did, those are those were huge milestones that I was really excited to see. Again, the reaction, people, we did like special recordings for those things, and people were watching
Yeah,
along, like they were actually at a Super Bowl party, which was
yeah,
awesome. That was a lot of work, so we don't do that anymore, unfortunately. But another, that might end up coming back in a similar way, though, because we have another one of these scouting tools has also put in like a NFL red zone type interface, so you can watch the games in real time,
yeah.
just like you would on your phone, or you know on an app or whatever, and you're watching the ball move up and down the field and everything. And so, like when the national championship rolls around, the Super Bowl rolls around, I know people are going to be in there like having, we do like a watch party or something like that. The NFL draft, that was always that first one was really cool. Um, the first draft we did on the interface. was awesome.
Yeah.
We've had, and we're talking about all these tools and stuff that have popped up. This is stuff done by like 6 or 7 different people, have all contributed immensely to this community. And Tuscan does the interface, and he's done far more than his fair share of making this site what it is. And I really do think his interface is what separates us from
Mm.
like the site that was before,
Yeah.
because it's all automated. Well, not all automated, but the vast majority of it is automated, and it makes it easier on us to be able to maintain the league, makes it easier on users because there's less work for them to do to get ready for the week. Like it used to be with the old sim, you'd have to sit there and it would take, if you had to make major changes, you had to take like hours
Yeah.
to get your stuff ready. And there were just a lot of people that are like, I just don't have time for this.
Hmm.
And the sim now, once you get everything set up, that first week might be an hour of tweaking and playing with things, but week to week, spending maybe 15 minutes
Yeah.
at most. If you need to make major changes, maybe 20, 30 minutes at most. um, Tweaking things, and so that makes it a lot easier for people that don't have a ton of time to still participate. Um, and so like that, having that interface up was huge. It was so that is probably the biggest milestone, I think, for the sim. And then um, we've had a lot of other small stuff, like we redid the schemes and everything. I think that was cool to see how that shook out. I'm really happy with how that worked out. I think that's one of the better improvements we've made to the sim, where we've tried to move away from there's only one meta. Tried to make it so that if
Hmm.
you build your team the right way, you could make the scheme you want to run work.
Hmm.
We've had teams that are air raid win the national championship. We've had teams that were wishbone win the national championship. We had teams that are pistol win the national championship and Super Bowls and stuff. So like there are many different ways to win in the sim, and there's a rock paper scissors with defensive schemes and offensive schemes and stuff, and scheme fits and not. So there's so many different combinations possible between players and schemes, and how schemes interact with other schemes, that's probably been one of my favorite features. So when that got implemented, that was another huge one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Just when you put it all together, it is amazing the length and breadth of what's been built. And yeah, you talk about the interface, just knowing that like your stats and your stat histories and your record, your past seasons are on there, to say nothing of your
Yeah,
depth chart and a nice grid for
getting
every
the players in
attribute.
there. Yeah,
Oh, and your cap sheet. I remember Old Sim managing a cap sheet
yeah,
separately with not a specific template, but it did have a list of requirements that you had to follow.
yeah,
Um, I can't
yeah. I will
imagine.
say,
Yeah.
if there's a part of me that enjoys Excel, and so there was some fun in that. But at the same time, this is so much easier, and it's a lot less work.
Oh yeah.
And since since we've started this, I've had 2 kids, I got married, bought a house, everything, and it's like, when I first started, when I first started, I was unemployed, living in my my girlfriend's parents' basement, basically, trying to find a job and trying to go back to school. And so like I had tons of time on my hands. Like, and even when I did get a job, it was only part time. So like I had plenty of time on my hands. And
Hmm.
so it was funny, how that's changed as well. Talk about milestones, like just the difference between now. Like if I was in my if I found old sim back, if I found that today, I would not have the time to participate. So I'm glad I started it when I did, trying to build the engine then, and I'm really glad there were the people in place to help me do that. And then they jump on, and Tuscan picks up the interface, and there are other people that help work on the interface, and you help me with the engine, and so now we're at the point where it doesn't need just one person.
Hmm.
There are so many different people that have stepped up and helped that it's become its own. separate thing that is, there's no one point of failure. Another um, exciting benchmark that I think I want to point out is how we have, like, when I saw someone set up, I can't remember who it was, somebody set up a mentor help
Hmm.
channel in the Discord server. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Excuse me, because I'm seeing new players jump in, and we direct them to that as part of the welcome. Like, hey, if you have any questions, ask it in this chat. And there are, I'm seeing new users that jump in there, and there are so many people willing and ready to help. And they ask all kinds of questions. I've seen all kinds of questions in there, and everybody's ready to go with the answers. They're like, yeah, you do this XYZ, and that really helps build the community too, right? Because being knowing that you're part of a community that you can ask questions. Don't
Hmm.
be afraid to not know what you're doing, because none of us knew what we were doing, and me included, when we first started, because we had no idea how the hell this worked, and had to figure it out. So it I was really happy to see that the way the community has stepped up to invite new people that want to participate, because like you said, more people participating feeds on itself. It's a
Hmm.
self-reinforcing loop there.
Yeah. Yeah, and just the fact that it's so, not only people active, but people are so supportive. It's like, yeah, we want to
Yeah.
compete, we want to win, we want to build this great team, but you want people to have fun, you want people to be putting their best team out there, you want interesting games, things you can talk about the next day. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if you ask someone, hey, what do you think of this scheme, or how could I maximize this, or should I redshirt this guy, who should I start? People will give you their honest opinion, um,
Yeah.
and I love that. Um, it's funny you talked earlier about like the crazy records from like the first year of the sim and how we can just kind of hand wave those away, and it's like, well, in the same way that every weird quirk of the sim has a real life equivalent, I feel like that does too. Like, I mean, the
Yeah.
NFL's been around since 1920, but like how many of those years you're like,
Yeah.
okay, those don't really count.
Yeah. Like the Pottsville Maroons.
Right?
I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and if you live in central Pennsylvania, you've heard about the Pottsville Maroons, who were cheated out of an NFL championship by the then Chicago Cardinals.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, like they're so yeah, and they played crazy schedules with you know teams that existed for a year and then folded and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So yeah, there's it is true that there are quirks to it that do mirror real life. But one of the coolest things I love about it is, we don't script anything. There's nothing scripted. There's no, like rubber band mechanics or anything like that. And so it's really cool to see when that stuff pops out organically. A
Mm-hmm.
comeback pops out organically. And it's like it just is what happened.
Yeah.
It's not coded in the sim to happen, but sometimes those things just happen, and you get a bunch of lucky rolls all in a row, and you make a comeback. And every we try to every week I try to sit down with Tuscan and you and go over games, and there are plenty of times where we're looking at stuff like, wow, that game was really cool. And it just pops out. It's emergent from the underlying sim, which is really neat.
Yeah. I think we had a 31 point comeback in Sim NFL earlier this year.
Yeah,
Um, it,
there's been some of those. There's been uh like teams coming all the way back and then missing the extra point to lose the game. And all kinds of things were like uh just crazy stuff happening.
yeah.
And it totally organic. It just pops out of it's emergent from the engine. And there's so, like, the storylines that come out of it between, with players and teams. And we've had teams that for years have not been good, and users have stuck with it, have kept going even though the team's not very good. And now, like the Big 12 has two teams that are at the top that are really good, with like West Virginia and Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those teams were terrible for the longest time, but we have users that have stuck with them for years, real life years, but also lots of years in the sim, and have turned them around, have done a lot of recruiting, and have made their teams juggernauts. But they started from the bottom, and those kind of storylines too are really cool.
Yeah, yeah. West Virginia is still one of my favorite early storylines in the sim, going from a triple
Yeah,
digit ranked team to being within 2 years like pretty competitive, and now, as
yeah,
you say,
winning playoff games.
yeah,
You know, Texas Tech this year is probably them and Baylor are the two teams at the top of the Big 12 that are probably going to be in the Big 12 championship game. And very possibly both of them can make the playoffs. And um, and Texas Tech was another one of those teams that would like went winless.
mm-hmm.
They didn't win a game, but thankfully those coaches didn't let that discourage them, and they stuck with it. And now I think they're undefeated. I think Texas Tech hasn't lost a game so far in
Wow.
2026. So
Oh man, it's fun. It really is. Yeah, I describe it as people. It's the best of sports, and it's the best of the theory of sports,
yeah,
without any of sometimes the real life baggage, the
yeah,
money and the other corrupting influences, and we can just say no, this is the sport.
yeah.
Um,
You don't have
and,
to worry
and
about the reps being bad or anything like that.
no,
Um, like people have said, how do we want to handle that? There have been suggestions about maybe we have like every once in a while the refs will make like a wrong call or something, and
mm,
the sim's not that granular, and so like we end up just saying, if the ref called it, it happened.
yeah,
It is what it is. Um if this whatever happens in the sim is what happened and it was legit, there's no fixing games, there's no refs uh can't see in front of their face, that kind of thing, missing calls, there's none of that. There's no yeah, like you said, there's no real life baggage associated with it. There's no pressure, real life pressure, and some
mm-hmm,
people are competitive and they want to win, and so there's a little bit of pressure there. But it's all up to you. And if you're
yeah,
like, I just want to play football and play football sim, and what happens happens, this is perfect for that.
yeah, yeah. I think it works at every level, both mechanically and kind of RP wise. Um, yeah, you don't as a coach, you don't have to worry about your job. You can take time,
Yep.
develop your scheme, develop your players, play who you want to play, um, and
I apologize for interrupting, but
there
I
you go.
just thought of probably my favorite moment, for not a milestone per se, but favorite moment in the sim
Yeah.
community. And it was, so um, in case you're watching and you don't know, for the draft, we all get together and we live stream it, and we have watch parties in the Discord server, and a few of us get together and broadcast the draft. Like if you're following along at home, um, and Pierce here goes up there and announces the picks and everything. And yeah, if you have the first overall pick, it's become a tradition to go on Cameo or whatever and get some famous person from your franchise to announce the first pick, right? And so someone had, I think it was the Bucks, had the number one overall pick the one year, and they got John Gruden to do their pick announcement. I don't even remember who it was. It might have been Travis Knable. No, because Knable was the Texans. He went to the Texans. I can't remember who. Either way, it doesn't matter. John Gruden announces the pick, right? And the guy who paid for it was like, I just told him, hey, we do this football simulation. They're not real players, but they're the real franchises and stuff. And we're gonna be doing our draft. Could you announce the first pick and like here's some background on players, but have some fun with it, right? And boy did John Gruden have fun with it. Like you could tell he was enjoying making totally pulled stuff out of his ass, just made stuff up and was laughing about it. And but at the end he mentioned about the Dean sock incident. Now I won't go into detail about the sock incident. If you want to know more, go on the site and ask Dean himself, he'll tell you. But I just love knowing that John Gruden, real life Super Bowl winning coach John Gruden, knows about our site and knows about the sock incident. So that is my favorite moment in all of our Sims history. It was awesome, and I appreciate Dean being a good sport about it.
Oh man, that's wild. That's a real
It
thing.
is wild. Like, what
That's a
kind of
real
a
thing that happened.
this is real life, man. John Gruden knows about this and thought it was funny as hell, man. He was having a good time.
He that it, he was that was he
Yeah.
did not have to buy in as much as he did, um,
No, but he did.
and he absolutely did.
Yeah, because some of them you do the cameo things, and they don't like mail it in necessarily, but you know that they're there like collecting my $100 or however much it was for a
Hmm.
5 minute video and then calling it a day. But like John Gruden, he said, "Man, this looks great. I'm gonna have some fun with this." It was awesome. I loved it. Favorite
Yeah,
moment. Favorite moment.
yeah, yeah. I've said it before. I am a bundle of nerves on draft weekend as a GM, but as commissioner and just to be a part of it's so much fun. Um,
It is.
just because, yeah, the it's in terms of like in real time engagement, one of our biggest events, just in terms of the number of
Yes.
people who are there, and
Yeah.
thousands of Discord messages um, each hour, and posting players and reacting to who gets picked. Um, and just the continuity between college to pro is cool, especially as we get into
Yes.
now. We've had guys who have had full college career, have gone from being recruited, having full college careers, getting into the NFL,
Yeah.
um, and starting to see them ascend. Because I know we think.
Those storylines pop out, like we were saying, that emerge. That
Hmm.
none of this is scripted in the sim. People just like Matt Howard has become an icon.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this, but just one of our users like, nah, man, I love this dude. I'm gonna run with it. We're gonna LARP with it, and we're gonna have some fun with it. There are guys that have started off in college, in one college, and we implemented the transfer portal, and so
Mm.
now they're guys that played at multiple schools and got drafted, and so that adds a layer of complexity to it that's really neat. But I'm sorry I interrupted you. What were you gonna say?
Oh, well, so I've been working on like value generation for the as because we get into extension season for
Yes.
NFL, so that's been on my
Yep.
mind a lot. But just looking at some of these names, like I know we think about like Dakota Link and some of these guys who are the big names that have come out of, but it really is we are right on the tipping point of a real changing of the guard when maybe not the majority, but when a lot more of these college guys that came through that system become common names in the pros,
Yes.
and I don't think we have any pro exclusive users. I think pretty much everyone has seen it in college, so it's not like it's a surprise.
Yeah.
But there's just going to be even more of the Dakota Links, the Will Hubers, the guys who Christian Barraclaw,
Yeah.
either because of high overall or high performance, start making their mark in the NFL, and we're going to hit that tipping point where that's the majority of the rosters anymore.
Yep. We're already starting to see some of the older guys in the sim leave. I run Dallas, the Cowboys, and we traded away our quarterback a year after winning the Super Bowl because he was getting old and he started to regress. And I'm like, we need to move on here. And he's doing great in New York with the Jets, but um, so like we're looking to new blood. Who can we get to come in and replace him? And thankfully, we had a good backup that we could turn to.
Hmm.
And we do have a young guy in the wings that maybe he's the guy. Maybe we draft a guy. I don't know just yet, but yeah, you're already starting to see a little bit of that, inklings of that. Guys that started off really good in the sim are most of them are still pretty good, but you can start to see them slipping a little bit. You know, and eventually, guys that started off as the best of their position are not anymore,
Hmm.
and we're starting to see the changeover there. That's gonna be exciting over the next few years for sure.
Yeah. Oh, Dallas Cowboys question. Since I have you on,
Yes.
because I
Yeah.
was
Sure.
talking to Sub last week. So, like you said, Cecilio Fuentes having a pretty good year. Now, is that, do you think, is that more of an indication of his quality as a backup or as a player, or is this a, oh, we filled out this team so we
Yeah.
can pick and dump anyone in there, so it's time to find the next guy
Um,
so is that an indication of Fuentes being good, or if just you have this great system that you think you can drop anyone in with some kind of success?
I would say Fuentes definitely has some skills that are valuable that other players don't have. He's one of the smarter players in the sim, so we can run a lot of like RPOs and stuff with him. Him being a field general, but uh, we did try. I don't remember what week it was, but we did try to play Bam Bozeman, and it did not go well.
Hmm.
We gave him a chance, and he still needs time, I think. So I don't think it is that we've got this great supporting cast, and you can put whoever you want at quarterback. You could put your Trent Dilfer type guy at quarterback and be fine. I don't think so. And so the question is, that is a big question for us moving forward. It's the elephant in the room for us.
Hmm.
Do we stick with Fuentes? Do we sign him long term because he's not young, but he's in his prime?
Mm-hmm.
Do we try to stick with him a little bit longer, maybe maximize the time we have with him, take advantage of that? Can he be a guy like Noel and get over the hump for us? I don't know, maybe. Um, do we say, you know what, let's just try to get young here because the rest of our team is pretty young? Maybe we can extend our championship window as long as possible by getting a young quarterback. But then you say, okay, well, there's going to be some growing pains because of all the positions out there. Quarterback has been probably the most difficult to just plug and play guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question just yet, and I have been thinking about it for a while. I'm not sure. I think part of the answer is going to be, how do extensions go?
Mm-hmm.
Are there free agent guys out there that maybe we could throw a boatload of money at now that we don't have to pay Noel? But that's another thing too. Like, one of the big reasons why we got Noel is we traded him to the Jets is we couldn't afford him anymore. We didn't have enough money
Mm-hmm.
to sign anybody else and keep anybody else. Like, we were at our cap basically, and he was by far the biggest contract. So having a guy like Fuentes who's a lot cheaper, made it so that we could build more around him. But that won't last forever, and maybe there are some good quarterbacks in the draft that we could pick up one, but that's also probably going to be unlikely. We're having a decent year. I think it's a good chance to make the playoffs, and if you do, you've got a second half first round draft pick. There's no way
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting one of the really good quarterbacks. It's just not happening unless you give up the farm, and then it's a matter of, okay, well, now we got to win now with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions there, and I do think the sim is probably um, a bit more forgiving when it comes to the journeyman quarterback,
Mm.
like a Fuentes or a David Chop type guy that just needed a change of scenery kind of thing. He's killing it in Kansas City right now. David Chop is.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's our answer: is we sign a decent quarterback to a long-term contract, try to spread out the cap hit a bit or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but otherwise, that's that is going to be a long-term discussion, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now I do want to point out, just to be clear, Chop is the highest overall quarterback in the sim. Not that he didn't play
Yes.
like it,
Well,
but on paper, certainly
he
better than
is
Journeyman.
he is, but he is a scrambler, and that is so he has high. I think he's a scram. If he's
Chop
not,
is
he's balanced.
Chop is balanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but he's a better runner than he is a thrower.
Hmm.
It seems, at least in Baltimore, that would seem to be the
Yeah.
case. Now, the I will say Baltimore is not one of the better teams in terms of its supporting cast. Um,
Hmm.
but we have started to see Brandon Savage start to pick up a little bit. I think he's starting to do. Uh, you're starting to see glimpses of what he could be in Baltimore, and so they just have to kind of build around him.
Yeah.
So it is possible to find a quarter. Even San Francisco, Scott Romero, that from Ball State that they picked up first overall. They're not, again, they're not a contender this year, but they're definitely doing better than they were last year,
Hmm.
and you can start to see glimmers of hope for these teams in the near future. That if they draft well and they do well in free agency and sign good, make smart decisions with contracts, that they could start to build a team that can build around these guys and get into contention here. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess Chop maybe Journeyman's a two is an underrating him a bit, but we've definitely seen like Jeremiah West in Seattle.
True.
He's been doing pretty well out there. He'll have hiccups every once in a while, but on the whole, he is a far better quarterback than they've had out there.
Hmm.
Um, and he's definitely contributing to Seattle being in the playoff conversation. Um, so it's and we also have some journeyman guys that have not been good, like Rashawn Lyons. Started off in Indianapolis, I think,
Hmm.
then goes to New England,
Yeah.
then goes to Denver, and Denver. I'm not entirely sure why. My theory is that they thought that they could beat the Colts pretty handily, and
Yeah.
so let's give Lyons some snaps so he can get better. And Lions just totally wet the bed, and now Denver has their first loss of the year.
Yeah.
But and so I noticed they shipped him off pretty quick
Yeah.
as a result. So there are guys out there that just cannot put it together for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point about guys like Romero and Savage, again, that mimics real life very well, which is, well, the reason you were in that position. I guess Baltimore did trade up for him, but in San Francisco, the reason you were in the position to trade him is because you had the worst record last year.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some building. But
Yes.
if you've got your quarterback on the rookie deal, you might have a little more capital to
Yeah.
spend elsewhere. And I am hoping. I think my theory is that free agency this coming year might be a little more robust than it might have
Mhm.
been in the years past. Just looking at the number of, like, 29, 30, 31 guys who are, you know asking for a new deal, who are pretty good but so close or just over prime age that it's going to be a question of, well, do I want to commit to this guy for 3 or 4 more years,
Yeah.
especially with younger guys coming up, and with cap in general being a little more crunched for a few more teams. So I'm
Mhm.
thinking we're gonna have a bit more of those prime age veterans that are going to come out, and I'm sure not all of them are going to get the money they want. I think there's going to be some market adjustments there, but I think there's going to be a pretty good set of quality established players that people with cap can take advantage of.
Yeah.
That is my guess, and that is also my hope, because I think a robust free agency is a good thing for the sim.
Yeah. This sim definitely I think trading has definitely been more useful um than in real life.
Hmm.
Um and free agency has been less useful than in real life, but I do think you're right. Excuse me. I do think that this we've implemented a few different systems to try to spread things out, try to make it less linear, a little more randomized, so it's not so uh clear. Like it's easy to tell. It was easy to tell at the beginning, well, this guy's going to grow and he's going to take a few years, but then he's going to be at the top of his game for like 5 years, and
Hmm.
then he'll start to regress. But now it's a little muddier, and you have, there are, are you going to take a risk? You can be riskier, you can be more conservative, whatever, style you want to do. And we are starting to see, and we've seen good teams get worse over time, and we've seen teams that weren't good become good and become contenders, and we've had teams have ups and downs, like the Jets. The Jets started off as a good team, had some down years, and now they're back to being a good team again. um, we're starting to see some of the teams that have always been good slip a little bit more than I think usual, and not be quite as dominant as they usually are, like Denver and Washington. I think Washington lost 2 games so far this year, and they've never lost more than 2 games in a year.
Hmm.
pretty sure, at least not regular season. Um, so like we're getting to more parity now, which is nice. And so I think that's going to be that's exciting, seeing that parity develop. Of we're starting to decisions. Each decision that is then made is more important than before.
Hmm.
So the little things start to matter a little bit more, like cap space, and do we sign this guy who might regress, and now we have him on a huge cap hit and we need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I've said before, and I'll keep beating that drum that I want. Obviously, I want the sim to be accessible and everyone should get to play, but I do want good GMs to feel as valuable as good coaches, in the sense
yeah,
that people who understand the system know how to work it out and know how to you know check on progressions, get the most out of every
yes,
point of overall, out of every dollar and every draft pick, and can make smart
yeah.
decisions that can make it easier to keep your team, to keep your window open, or to build your team up over many years.
It is no coincidence that those two teams that I mentioned, Washington and Denver, are run by two people that have contributed quite a bit to the sim in terms of scouting and engine development and stuff, because they definitely know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, but we talked a lot about the mechanics and building out the engine, but the pro game, the management side of it has also been a huge beast, and is interesting to
Has
build out, tough to balance, but when it's done right, has a lot of fun levers to pull and things you can do to make your team better and to make the league interesting. And
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see how some of these we every year we try to tweak things a little bit to make it either more realistic or more interesting, or add another layer here and there, like training camps and stuff, and
mhm,
being able to say, um, so a guy coming out might be really good, but might have a bad camp, and now he's not quite as good as he was before. And now what do you do? So one of the fun things that comes out, that's come out over the last couple drafts, is who's got the best undrafted free agents.
mhm.
And so like I think the Saints got at least a starting level. I can't remember his exact overall, but he was a starting level guard in undrafted free agency. That
Oh, insane! Like 79,
yeah,
insane.
he was really good. This year I don't think we had quite that high of an undrafted free. I think the best undrafted free agent might have been in the mid 70s, but I mean that's still a starter level guy.
Yeah.
It's a guy you could plug in the first year, and so they have these diamonds in the rough that nobody anticipated. Like he didn't get drafted,
Hmm.
right? Like if somebody knew he was really good, he would have gotten drafted. So it's really cool to see those guys make their mark as well. So we've added undrafted free agency, talking, even just on the college side, like the transfer portal, things like that. Seeing these new systems add just another layer of depth, um, that you can, choose to. You don't have to make undrafted free agents a big thing for you, but if you want to put in the time, it's possible you could find that, you could win the lottery and find a really good guy, or at least get someone who's serviceable and can fill a hole.
Hmm.
Especially if you're a team that's desperate for anyone who's better than average. Um, so there's a lot of real interesting dynamics here at play, and I really appreciate the work that you guys have been putting into creating that.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, and it's a lot of fun. And I get a little nervous every year when extensions roll around, because there's always something weird. There's always a Jeremy Copeland where it's like, why do I got to pay this guy, $8 million?
Right.
um,
Yeah.
which we have, made some adjustments, Sarge and I, since last year, to smooth things out. So I'm excited to roll those out. Um, but yeah, it's just such it's both it's a fun sandbox to play in, and it also just it's such a big part of the sim, that I
Mm.
always get a little nervous every time it rolls around. Um, but yeah, just new features, new frills, new things, and always, a new data point to give someone inspiration for a media article, or to end up creating the next Matt Howard story, whoever that
Yeah,
is. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that anyone's quite reached those heights quite yet, um, but I'm sure it's coming.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. There are so many opportunities for that, which is really cool.
Yeah. Um, any crazy predictions, hot takes, anything in universe that you want to put out there as far as the rest of the season goes?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Or any storylines that you're enjoying following? Any players, teams? Um,
Yeah, I don't have any hot takes because unfortunately I don't have a ton of time to dig into stuff to generate that kind of a take. But I definitely think that I'm excited to see how these young quarterbacks develop in the NFL, like the Brandon Savages and the Scott Romeros. I'm interested to see um, how far teams like Carolina and Miami can go,
hmm.
especially Carolina because they kind of um, started from the bottom and again they've turned themselves into a contender. I mean, they kicked the crap out of me the other day, and I think they're definitely one of the teams to beat in the NFC. So there's that. I'm interested to see how the mega teams of the past few years, like Washington and Denver, handle. Um, a lot of their bills are starting to come due,
Hmm.
and like we've already seen, Washington and Denver have to lose some guys to free agency or trade them away because they can't afford them anymore. And that's only going to get worse for the next year or two probably
Hmm.
before things kind of stabilize for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. As far as college goes, I'm interested to see how teams like Texas Tech, and other teams that have kind of their time has sort of come. What do they? Can they win the championship game? Can they get to the playoffs and make some noise? And of course, I'm always pulling for Penn State and Dallas to do well. Interested to see how these players that I'm recruiting and drafting and signing develop.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a good time to be a fan of the sim. It's a good time to be a user in the sim.
It is.
And I yeah, I love working on it. I love playing it, and thanks for everything you've done to create this site and help foster this community, because it's really really awesome.
Of course, I love working on it. Like I said before, it's kind of a passion project of mine. I'm lucky that I'm able to work with a bunch of people that also feel that way about it, and like you and T Sweezy and Alex and Tuscan, and I could list all kinds of names.
Hmm.
There are plenty of names uh, that I can't hit. We'd be here all night, just listing off people that have contributed so much to the sim to make it fun to play and fun to be a part of. So, um, yeah, it's been awesome to be a part of. It really has.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very valuable, so I appreciate you coming and sitting down and talk with me tonight. Um, Everyone out there at SimSN, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate you guys, every one of you, so much. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.